Hey everybody, welcome to Web3 Unpacked. Today we have Lena Grundhoefer with us from Zeitgeist. Lena, it's interesting. You've done so much in Web3 and social media marketing and consulting. Maybe just give us a background of how you came to Zeitgeist and your path to this point, if you can, for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
So basically, I started consulting a few years ago. I've been in the marketing world for about 8 years. Born and raised in Chicago, have always been very much interested in just human psychology. My mom's a psychologist. My dad owns a print shop. So I was pretty much born, raised, and grown by art, by graphic design, and just by understanding like what makes people tick. So I moved to New York about 8 years ago, realizing that I wanted to pursue fashion at the time. And after a few years of working in the industry, I realized it wasn't necessarily for me, just because a lot of people are overpaid and underworked. Underpaid and overworked.
The other combo would be nice. Yeah,
that would be a great combo.
Yeah.
And after that, I started working at Meta on a contract job, which is amazing. And that opened up a lot of doors for me because I was probably working close to 25, 30-hour weeks and started consulting for a bunch of brands on the side. And after that, I fell in love with crypto a few years in. Dogecoin was my entry into the market.
Wow.
And then my first NFT project happened to be Creatures, the first NFT project on Solana, and it was a domino effect. So now Zeitgeist is a strategy agency, and we've helped over 50 brands across the world, specifically I think about 10 to 12 in crypto specifically. We now have a team of about, I believe, 9 contractors working for us, and I'm about to be merging with my co-founder, Victoria, so exciting times ahead, regardless of the market conditions. So
Awesome. So you got bit by the blockchain bug, rooted in fashion, and, doing these collabs with other mega brands and even smaller brands, which is really cool too. Tell us about, maybe fill us in a little bit about your social media background, because social media, as we know it, it's super important for getting your products and services out there, but it's used a little differently in Web3. Can you shed some light on that for us a little bit?
Yeah. So across the board, to date, every platform, there's so many social media platforms now. You have Instagram, you have TikTok, you have Facebook, you have LinkedIn, you have Snapchat for those that still use it. Discord, which is like a social platform. There's Telegram. There's so many different communication channels, but specifically for Web3, I find that a lot of the industry revolves around Twitter. For more of the Web2 focused hitters, LinkedIn is great for getting your word out there, lead generation, etc. And then from a communications platform, you have Telegram, which is great because it's encrypted. You have Discord because it's pretty much very game heavy. And then you have Signal because it's encrypted, but I don't really like Signal. So there's a lot of different ways to navigate the trenches of Web3, but there's a place for everyone, depending on what your tastes are. So,
yeah, there's so many platforms, and a lot of our clients love, Telegram, who's on Discord. It's all over the place. But what we're finding on our side too, because we do a good amount of experimenting in the Web3 space in conjunction with traditional marketing and social media marketing platforms, that we're finding that we're kind of pushing people to our Discord more than anything else, right? Because that's where you can kind of wrangle your community. We're starting to set up a DAO now so that we can kind of pull people in, give them benefits and tools and information. Otherwise would just be on loosey goose on a website. So we keep them focused and we keep the conversation going. You finding that very similar? You using it in a very similar way or differently?
Yeah, from a team perspective, our team of contractors plus myself and Victoria, we operate on a Discord. It's great because it's a funnel for keeping everyone up to date with the news. It's a great way to streamline communication and conversations all in one place, whether it's through clients, whether it's through, interests and so forth. I'm also a member of Jump DAO, which is a great tool for aggregating just marketing professionals across the space. And they've been crushing it. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but from just like a news perspective, they just launched an NFT. And I believe the NFT utility, which grants people access to the Discord now, allows people to like speak at panels and so forth, which is like even cooler. So there's a lot of opportunities, especially in the DAO space on Discord. But I'm bullish, and it's funny. I actually was speaking to one of my friends earlier in the space, and he's like, in my opinion, like Discord's going to die in the next 12 months. And I was like, I don't agree with you, but wow. We'll see. I mean, eventually Discord will have huge competitors, as they always, which eventually always unravels. But unless Elon gets his SHIT together, we'll see. That might be the next thing. So.
Oh, Elon. It's like you need the second job keeping up with his tweets.
Do you feel optimistic about Twitter? Like a lot of people are talking about maybe Web3 integration, you know, who knows, financial payments. What do you think of where it's heading? I guess we're all kind of guessing though.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've gathered, I don't know if this is like correct, but apparently since he stepped in, like spending on Twitter is like down, like spending like internally is down like 75%. So they're already saving a significant amount of money. They've obviously given everyone 3 months severance across the board. They're rewarding the people that obviously are staying. But if I were an engineer and I was working at Twitter, I would say, of course, I'm going to work for Elon Musk. It's like he's like one of the best innovators in the world. But for most other people, like a 3-month vacation is a great path forward, and I don't blame them. But with that being said, I'm bullish on Twitter. I think that right now I'm a little skeptical because a lot of people that were removed from the communications channel were brought back on, including some politicians and rappers that we know of, and problematic conspiracy theorists. But I would say that in terms of live updates and everything, that's why I love Twitter, because even from a journalist perspective, like there's no other way to really get information in real time in a streamlined way other than it. So we'll see where it goes. It could end up dying in a year. I don't have like a magic crystal ball to look into the future, but it's still my favorite platform. So
yeah, it's a good platform. You know, there could be worse people behind the wheel of Twitter. Elon's, to your point, a really smart guy. I'm sure he's got some really interesting tricks up his sleeve, which we can't wait to see. And I think he'll create some onboarding, to Matt's point, onboarding to Web3. NFTs, I think, will be probably the kind of the low-hanging fruit and kind of getting that ball rolling. And NFTs, as we know, can take any shape, size, shape, or form. So it'll be interesting to see what he does with that. But yeah, just another tool. I don't think it's going away. I think it's just going to change a little bit. It's interesting because there's just a lot of buzz around it these days. And also, geez, I hate to bring it up, but, FTX, right? These are all the buzz. To me, FTX, whether you like what Elon's doing, it's not really going to change your day. I mean, it could technically, but it's really not going to set you back from a business or communication standpoint because, to your point, there's a lot of other avenues to go. But FTX is touching everyone. What are
at least in our space
that?
It is, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Just high level.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this situation is very unfortunate. I think the dominoes have been getting bigger and bigger ever since this whole Russia and Ukraine fiasco that kind of propelled where we are today forward back in, I think, March or May. I don't remember anymore. Everything's just like 1 month at this right now.
To blur into 1 month of chaos. Yeah.
2 years.
That's a well-put way of looking at the past few years here. Yeah.
I think that obviously there's been a number of companies and conglomerates that have gone bankrupt as a result. And I'm a Solana maxi, which is unfortunate because I was just at Breakpoint and there's so much innovation happening, especially on the blockchain. But I think when it comes to what's going to happen in the future, I still wholeheartedly know and believe that crypto and the metaverse is the future. Will it have a very long bear period ahead until there's regulation down and more people trust it again? Absolutely. It could be a few months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, but regardless of the fact, like, crypto is here to stay. JP Morgan, I believe, just filed for some type of trademark in Web3 or bought some type of wallet. So people are still moving in, sharks are still moving in, and the future is bright ahead, just maybe not today. So
yeah, it's interesting you bring up JP Morgan, because I've been following a few, what I would say, traditional financial institutions like Fidelity. People look at Fidelity and they're like, oh, that's a great place to keep your 401k and your retirement savings, which is totally true. But what people don't really see is that them and other big institutions have been for many, many years, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, working on the blockchain, developing applications on their end, all within a kind of closed, test net or, test environment. But they're pretty progressive. That's progressive for me, in my eyes, to see those financial institutions really pushing ahead for so long. So with that said, they're not bailing out. I know they're not. I have friends that work for, Ernst & Young and Fidelity and a few others. They're not going anywhere. And it's gonna keep going. And one of our things that we always say here is, the true folks, the developers, the people building innovative platforms and protocols, they're not going anywhere. Are they rattled? Yeah, everyone's rattled, but they just keep going forward. And that's the beautiful part. People who believe are still, it's not even about believing. They just know that it's a better way forward. I think there's great optimism, and I agree it'll be a little bearish before it gets a little bullish. We just got to wait it out and keep building. Like, don't wait on the sidelines, keep building. That's all.
Lena,
Right.
just curious, where do you get your Web3 conviction? Because I think all of us in the space have a certain conviction, but is it data-based? Is it instinct? Is it like, why do we all still believe in this, even though there's so much chaos? I mean, I have some reasons myself, but just curious to hear yours.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I think it's more instinctual. It's, first of all, hard to grab my attention. I like to jump between industries. I'm not someone that likes to stick with one industry because I feel like it's pretty narrow and it's hard to just kind of move around. But what the beautiful part about Web3 is the endless possibilities across sectors. And there's a place for everyone, whether you want to be a community member or just a degen trader and be boots on the ground, or you want to be a professional that really shapes the space to the future, or you want to help bring your specific industry into it, whether it's real estate, whether it's development, whether it's, fashion or something and so forth, or you're a one-of-one artist. There's a place for everyone. And I think that there's nothing that is innovating more innovating than where we are today. And specifically, Web3 has so many pockets of opportunity, whether it's through NFTs for some, or through POAPs for others, or Web3 gaming for, billions of people that like to game worldwide, and so forth. And I think that, like, decentralization is the future. Obviously, from a corporate greed perspective, there's a lot of different people that have taken advantage of consumers across the world. And I think that granting access to people on a user basis is key to the success of just like future civilizations. And that's why I'm excited about it in a nutshell.
Yeah. You hit the key words there, decentralization. It is everything. And as soon as people realize, and to your point, it's unfortunate that a lot of new users got caught up in that. It was very, get rich quick, get in. Nothing's ever going to happen. We're all in the crypto world, and it was all a big lie. The industry is not a lie. It's just, if you buy paper, you're buying paper. It's not real. And if you don't have keys, it's not your coin. So, unfortunate that a lot of our new listeners, new users, got caught up in that, and it's heartbreaking. But to your other point, I think there are so many little I think you said pockets of things budding up, and no matter what you're into, whether it be fashion or you're the CEO of a company that handles products and you have a supply chain, there are smart contracts and NFTs that you can spin up to really automate and add intelligence to your business. So, what we would say to our audience is like, just look, there's something out there for everyone. And once you get bit and you understand the power behind a lot of this stuff, it really is kind of eye-opening and fun to see what you can do with it. And to your point, it's limitless. Like, you're only limited by your creativity. And I think that's, we much like Zeitgeist, ARC focuses on a little bit more of the communications, a lot of the brand building communications end of things. And we come up with fun, clever ways to kind of unlock audiences or benefits for audiences all the time. It's just fun.
Well, we're also at a point now where it's like, I think we're focusing more on the utility of blockchain than maybe before, right? We're getting a little bit away from obsessing on the exchanges and the daily rates. I'm seeing even major publications starting to shift and wake up to the fact that, hey, the underlying technology is the big story here. Would that be sort of your thought process, Lena?
Yeah, I think from across the board, whether we're talking about e-commerce, there's loyalty programs that are being taken into consideration, which Starbucks just launched. I think something that's been super underutilized right now, which I'm going to launch a blog soon about, or blog post about, is like subscription models. I think that there's a lot of opportunity specifically on whether you want to launch a course or whether you want to, have some type of subscription-based premium account that you can utilize blockchain technology, whether it's through like an annual NFT subscription that expires after a certain date or something, and so forth. Because at the end of the day, what you own in your wallet is a part of you, and whether you're minting something on Ethereum or something on Solana or Polygon, like all these different facets of the industry will interconnect someday, hopefully, if everyone, focuses on interoperability more and we get there. But I think that from a use case perspective, there's just a lot of really cool opportunities that have yet to be unlocked, and that could be in healthcare, that could be from a government perspective, and so forth. So
I mean, immediately let's try out voting on the blockchain. There's an idea. Hey, all right, but we don't want to blow up the universe just yet, do we?
But it is interesting. A lot of organizations could, you're talking about DAOs. Like, there is some legitimacy that when you really look at blockchain at its highest level, it's a fundamental restructuring of many organizations across the board. It's quite an ambitious thing. So I guess in a weird way, it kind of makes sense that there's this much chaos, because it is so revolutionary in so many ways, right? If you're going to completely change systems, that's not overnight.
Right. And I do have to say that the level of complexities when you're dealing with archaic systems of governments is going to obviously get in the middle. But like the ZocDocs of the world that are launching, that are kind of revolutionizing healthcare, can be the leaders of that in a way, because they're helping, consumers get in touch with healthcare professionals, and they're tying together this gap. And if you were to tie in, like, let's say blockchain technology to that, like tracking, I feel like health, like, let's say just health trends could be a lot more easier if, like, let's say someone's name was tied to an NFT, and you could figure out what made more sense, let's say from a linear perspective, on like what year, what month, like, I don't know, certain sicknesses are happening. So it's just interesting to compare it in that perspective. But I'm also still in my learning phase, because there's so much to learn in this industry. So
yeah, and the healthcare angle is kind of mind-boggling what you can do with that. Having your health records in a digital wallet, that's also tied to maybe some, intelligence or AI that will kind of alert you to specific environmental or physical changes or alerts that you might want to see. From an industry standpoint, I think, like we were saying before, you're only limited by your creativity in the business world. To us, we speak a lot about taking the mental shift. And I think it's not a shift in technology. It's not adjusting to new technology. It's adjusting to what that new technology can do in a trustless manner. So I think that's what people have to that chasm that people have to jump over. That's the most important thing when you say, oh, I get it. Now let's play with this, and this. So that's where I see people literally have to almost wake up. There is a better way to do things. Stop complaining. I say that loosely, but, there were complaints in 2008, the results of Occupy Wall Street and the bank collapses after nothing legally literally didn't happen. Slaps on the wrist, a bunch of cypherpunks got together and said, no.
Yep.
No, absolutely not. That's the mental shift you have to take and say, we do have the power to make change. We just collectively have to get there together.
Lena.
Yep.
Lena, just curious. Sorry, that was a good speech. So when you're looking at companies right now that are kind of considering getting into the space, what are their thoughts? Do they see this sort of big vision for blockchain, or are they just kind of trying to jump in on the bandwagon, or what are their goals? What are they looking for, the clients you're working with?
I think depending on the client, there's a few different objectives in mind. Obviously, it's customer acquisition, and really leading new people into new frontiers from an innovation perspective. Additionally, there's people who are wanting to gain as much money as possible. So there's that perspective. Obviously, there are a lot of legacy brands that want to pursue Web3 because they just see dollar signs. But I think from a substantial point of view, the most opportunity for brands that are approaching the space comes from just wanting to, continuously innovate, because those brands that do are successful, way more successful than those that don't. And Nike is a great example. They just entered the space and launched their swoosh marketplace / NFT. And I think that alone is going to help us from a great use case perspective, not only with e-commerce, but with fashion brands in the future. And I think that, specifically speaking, no other fashion brands specifically have that much mass appeal other than Nike. And Nike is so sought after because of their just do it mindset, obviously tapping into the best celebrity talent and professional athlete talent in the world, and really just paving the way for what the future entails. I feel like nothing they do is like a fail by any means. So
They do. They have a swoosh themselves all the time. They always seem to succeed. It's incredible what they've been doing with Artifact, right? I mean, they seem like they've been giving it. They've been giving the experts sort of, and I think you talked about this elsewhere, Lena, right? Like they've been giving the experts the ability to steer this thing. They're not trying to assume they know all the answers, right?
Yeah. And I think that the brands and legacy brands that enter the space and hand it off to the Web3 professionals, or some may say experts, are the best and most well-equipped to succeed. I think that right now it's hard to say that anyone's really an expert, even if you were trading since 2013 and so forth, just because there is a lot of, like I said, there are a lot of pockets of expertise. Like, let's say you're an expert trader, but no one anticipated an FTX fall like we did either. And so that's why the market crashed. But from a marketing perspective, I think that there's these Web2 marketers that are approaching the space. And obviously with now more skin in the game, it's helped just create more opportunity across the board, just because everyone is hungry to learn, everyone's hungry to adapt, and everyone's hungry to shift the paradigm forward, because traditional marketing is kind of just being left to die right now. So it's interesting to see how everything's shifting in that direction. So
yeah, there is a shift, you know, and it is kind of tapering off. And I don't think it's like old versus new. I think, you know, after spending so much time in Web3 and in the traditional marketing space, I think it's a mind shift again, where you're new tools, new platforms, new kind of superhighway, if you will, your audiences are in different places. So it's about recognizing the lines of communication and where your audiences and your, you know, your patrons are, and connecting with them in a very seamless manner, but also in new ways too. I mean, just Discord is just so great. And I don't mean to gush about Discord, but that's why I felt it funny that your friend said it was going to die in 6 months.
I saw the face of devastation there. Like,
yeah, like, no, I put so much time into it. Please don't go away.
I don't agree with that, by the way.
Biggest
but
fan
anyway.
shirt. Yeah.
Oh, I know you don't, but I find it slightly comical, because we're all dumping a lot of time into it, and there's so many really cool nuances, right? So why Discord over Telegram? We use Telegram every day, but we're not building on Telegram. Discord allows you to kind of bring in these really interesting tools tied to the blockchain, you know, verifying NFTs, which basically is like showing your ID at the door of a club or whatever you're doing. You know, so there's really, really interesting possibilities, and you know, people are hanging out, and consumers are hanging out in different places. They're getting advertised to in different places, with different products and services. But a lot of that will change, and people have to kind of understand where they're looking, because there's new places. I mean, you look at the news and some of the metrics out there, you know, even, you know, direct TVs, you know, streaming TV channels are waning a little bit, because in the advertising end of things, less on the content side, but, you know, people are just not there anymore. They're on their phones. They're here, they're there. So it's interesting. And I think it's you know, once you start to look where people really are and where they're communicating every day for work, social, and just, you know, bumming around, it's in different places than you think. So really cool stuff.
You know what I loved was also when we just talked about Artifact. I know it's a little bit old news, but I loved the NFT thing. Just be curious to get your thoughts on that, Lena. We just on this end, Rich and I talked about it so much. We just thought it was such a cool kind of brand marriage. We'd love to get your perspective on that one.
I'm actually not familiar with that. Could you explain more?
Oh, well, Rich, you know the Tiffany & Co. and CryptoPunks.
Oh, Tiffany, yeah. So, they did a partnership with CryptoPunks. And if you had a CryptoPunk, kind of unlocks the opportunity to get a diamond encrusted or a ruby encrusted, whatever it was. You've probably seen it. It's just a fun.
The Tiffany collaboration.
Yeah, Tiff.
Yeah,
every time I hear
no one calls it NFTiff. That was on me.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
When I hear TIFF, I'm like, oh, it's a .tiff. It's an image file. That's the nerdy designer in me coming out. Okay, so. You know, really cool collaboration. Is it for everyone? No. Tiffany is not. I mean, they may argue differently, but it's not you know, it's an aspirational, for some, it's an aspirational brand, you know, and creating a little bit of, you know, specialness around their physical and digital, you know, products is really kind of a fun thing. And it validates, you know, authenticity. You know, it acts as, you know, provenance, or, you know, it's, you know, it becomes a point of interaction too, furthering your interaction with the brand. Plus, they were really cool looking. I mean, just fun little objects, you know. So,
I mean, I know Tiffany's is like one of the most sought after like jewelry brands in the world. Now I think they were acquired by LVMH in the last few years. And with the supply of the collection, I think being $250 and then the mint price being like $30,000 or something, everyone was talking about it because no one's launched something like that. But regardless of the manner, I'm confident that LVMH has enough private buyers that if like CryptoPunk consumers didn't want to potentially buy like their own NFT in crystal form or necklace form, they could have easily had other consumers in like their top Rolodex, whether they're celebrities or old money or new money, to, actively engage. And I think it was just an interesting take on that. Do I think that they actually sold out? Questionable. I didn't see anyone post about it after the fact or their like custom, pendants, but, c'est la vie. It's part of the art in the industry. So
yeah, and we don't know who's all right, who exactly are buying these really expensive objects or pieces of jewelry, which leads me to like another thought that we've been having, behind closed doors here, is the idea of whether you like it or not, whether you buy one of those Tiffany CryptoPunks or not. Mission accomplished, because what they did was they really bolstered their brand building, right? So whether you like the Tiffany's brand or crypto's brand or the marriage of the two, that has nothing to do with anything, because they got everyone talking about them.
Yep.
They're now relevant in that they paid the cost of entrance, right? So now people are talking about Tiffany's, which is a fairly traditional, I would consider a traditional brand, in a very high-tech Web3 manner. That's very interesting. So it leads us into another conversation we've been having, is brand building is one thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then whether it's, Mercedes, Porsche, or Tiffany's, there's a lot of brand building you can do around brands like that and many others, including service brands. But when do we see real conversion, do you think?
Great. I think as of right now, the hot topic is whether these legacy brands want to utilize the terminology that, a lot of these brands have utilized in the past. For example, NFTs. With the Nike launch, you didn't see any NFT or metaverse terminology utilized there. I think a lot of major brands are gravitating towards digital collectibles, or, after this whole Reddit launch that went extremely viral, I think that a lot of the major brands that enter the space will be successful if A, their NFT is free, and B, it doesn't utilize any of this hard terminology that people can't wrap their minds around. Like, that's the reason why I didn't get into the space a few years ago, because I was like, I don't know any of this jargon, like, screw this. But like, now that I do a few years into the industry, like, it makes sense to me, but to the average consumer, like, that deters so many people away. And I think it really comes down to use cases from a mainstream perspective that launch, legacy brands into the future, and really just cool small brands innovating, what's the name of the company? The water company that's just been crushing it. I'm blanking on it, but it'll come back to me.
Aquafina? Just taking a random.
No. It'll click. But anyway, yeah. So
Glasso, or yeah.
You just go through every water brand.
Yeah, there's tons of water brands actually, and they're owned by Coca-Cola or whatever. A lot of them are actually. But you bring up an interesting point where, kind of like what's in a name, right, or a term or an acronym, and I think like every new industry, we have like what I would consider or call acronym fatigue. You know what I mean? It's just too much, and collectively, this group here has been involved in this world for so long, and it is really difficult to keep up with this stuff. So, yeah. So the change and the flip, where it's like you're not calling it an NFT, because NFTs, the term NFT, is it the best name for the technology? I'm not sure. Cody Marks Bailey, who is one of the co-authors of the actual protocol, would argue against the name as well. Just a little side note. But the idea of, say, Nike not calling it an NFT, even Starbucks, recrafting their rewards program into something that's more accessible. The only thing I would say about rewards programs are make sure that, if you're tokenizing it, make sure everything's transparent, obviously, and people understand how it truly works and what they actually own and what they actually don't own. But in the sense of naming, I think that's a really interesting creative problem to solve in marketing and branding and advertising. And you're right. We're seeing more of these brands just kind of own their own little slice. Yeah, it happens to be a Web3 product, but we're not calling it Web3 and we're not calling it an NFT or a protocol, if you will. So it's really cool to see how things are shaken out. And the direction that certain brands are taking. It's really interesting.
It's almost a weird parallel when you think about it with even the .com era. I mean, when you think of the HTTP protocol and everything, you would always list out the full address, and it was this big idea. And now you just say whatever .com or .nft or .eth now that we're moving in even that direction. So the technology is kind of just disappearing. And I guess these brands are sort of understanding that to hit mainstream with Web3, that it's almost a term for us in the marketing and in the development side, but average people I don't know if that really connects for them, right?
Yep. And I think that it really comes down to creating use cases that gravitate and pull in a lot of consumers that don't necessarily understand it. I mean, like, for example, when we're talking about just like rewards programs in particular, there's Yelp that or Resi that have essentially reward or incentivized people to, or Uber Eats that have rewarded or incentivized people to participate in their platforms, because obviously the more you consume on their platform, the more you'll be rewarded. Similar with Seated, which is another amazing app that has blown up more recently in New York. And I think that it really just comes down to easing the transition in from an interoperability perspective, like I mentioned earlier, and making it just like a one-click, easy access. Like you don't even know you're touching NFTs, but it's just part of the seamless process to begin with. So,
yeah, and what people don't realize, and it's not a hurdle, it's not a pitfall, it's nothing to get overwhelmed over, but is that to do that one-click kind of thing or authenticated one-click entry points, you have to really utilize 2.0 technologies, obviously, and then they convert and bridge over to 3.0. But it's also, and that's fine, right? There's the amount of true Web3 protocols and applications out there are tiny. It's a tiny amount of true Web3 protocols out there, but you have to be able to kind of onboard people, and I think it will be easier over time. And the technology does have to disappear, but you always have to maintain a certain level of transparency throughout the whole gamut and onboarding process, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you been following that NFL all day thing at all? I've been just looking into that, kind of this idea of owning sports moments. I admittedly am not a big sports guy, and I haven't like read up on it as much as I should, but it just seems extraordinary to me, that idea of NFTs as applied to the sports world, because that's like where the trading card collecting game began. You get fantasy sports. It just seems like immense potential along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, similar to NBA Top Shop, I think there's exponential opportunity, especially in the NFL or sports world, just because there are billions of people that are into sports, whether it's soccer, football in some countries, or actual American football, or hockey and so forth. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity when it comes down to even super fans and so forth. So I think when it comes down to adopting moments, It was definitely a catalyst to bring a lot of people in, especially in March of last year in 2021. Sorry, I don't even remember what year it is.
None of us do.
I think that in terms of use cases and bringing people in, like a lot of NFL consumers, surprisingly, are not even in their like Gen Z, like, or not even Gen Zers. They're probably above the ages of 35, 40, and you'd be surprised working with NFL and NFL Rivals, one of our accounts, is that they don't want to touch anything Web3 related because they associate it with scams and so forth. So it's interesting to compare the paradigm of people that are bullish on the space to people that are just want to, consume because they're into, fantasy sports and so forth, or just being a super fan relevant to their local team. So it's interesting to compare and contrast. So
I think there's huge opportunities with the idea of NFTs as moments. I think that's in and out of sports. Sports, certainly. I mean, you could take a whole, Super Bowl game or a World Cup game and slice it up into thousands upon thousands of moments, And if you're a super fan, that is the ultimate, like, wow, I've got a 30-second clip from, Team A and Team B. We don't know who they are yet, obviously, in the World Cup 2023. That's cool. To me, that's much better than having the player's card, if you will, almost like a playing card. That's a moment, or it's a combination of the playing card, flip it over, you get that moment that you bought into. And who knows, that moment could turn into a phenomenon. And secondary, that moment or card could turn into a sensation in the secondary markets. That's really cool. Fun stuff. Now you apply that to, the audio industry, the music industry, the movie industry. Your mind goes in 1,000 different directions.
And not even just these industries, but the convergence of those industries, right? Like where they all collide. So maybe certain rewards you've gained via sports games gets you certain kinds of music access. And so I think we've never really truly appreciated brand collaboration until we start looking at the possibilities of Web3, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Trusted collaboration too.
And I believe right now, like, for example, Taylor Swift tickets went insane and was it Ticketmaster? I don't remember, but StubHub, one of the two. Ended up selling her tickets that were sold out at like $13,000+ and like that alone just goes to show that easily these tickets could be deemed as NFTs in our relevant space as well. But from a moment's perspective of like you wanted to mint a particular lyric that she performed at like at her grand tour, or like if Beyonce performed at Coachella and you wanted this particular outfit pick, like you could have that. But I know that I think it was Quentin Tarantino that broke into the space not too long ago and ended up minting certain moments from his legacy Hall of Fame movies. So it's just interesting to compare and contrast how these different industries are doing it as well. So
yeah, I absolutely love it, especially in the music industry and live events. So your ticket becomes your NFT becomes your ticket. That NFT now opens up for everyone, opens up something really cool and extends the experience. You get to keep your ticket stub because it's an NFT. Then you can actually auction off moments from that show within the NFT or additional NFTs. To me, that is so powerful because a little girl and trust me, I tried to get tickets. That was a little futile. Definitely, that was not fun. And to see how much they went up, and you're being gouged. Basically, you're being gouged by these companies, and someone needs to stand up and say no. But could you imagine? Like, I have most of my ticket stubs when I was a kid, from high school on. I kept a lot of them. Yeah, it's cool. Totally cool. I need to do something cool with it. But not everyone does it. Usually they go into the trash bin or whatever it is, or you lose them, or they're stuck in your old wallet or something. I don't know.
Just a wallet exploding with tickets.
Like a wallet.
I really should clean this thing out.
I was that nerdy kid with the 10 ticket stubs in it. But you know what? Even in high school, I could afford to go to the shows. Because they were 25, 30, $50 was a lot back then. $100 was like really special. But if I had a little clip of, say, Pink Floyd in 1988, 13th row center stage, I'd lose my mind. Like, I want that now, and I think that's really, really special, and it keeps people attached to your brand, your artistic brand, or whatever you're putting out there. Very, very cool. And again, now just apply that to everything under the sun.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
Super fans going crazy all over the place. So,
are you seeing more? Are you seeing more people among the clients, kind of on the ground, Lena, of companies not in Web3 that are exploring these types of loyalty programs and jumping in, or are you seeing more development on just pure Web3 plays, companies that just are in their very DNA, blockchain or crypto or NFT based companies?
Yeah, I mean, there's a spectrum. I think that there's a lot of Web2 brands approaching the space because, again, they want to innovate and really see opportunity across the board. But there are also Web3 perspectives that are literally approaching the space straight out of college or literally quitting their full-time job because obviously we're in the midst of a recession and they want to just launch their career into a new paradigm with very minimal work experience. So I think that it's interesting to compare this dynamic of mindsets that approach the space, whether it's, Web2 marketing professionals or people that are expert traders, as they say, and then, they become advisors tomorrow. So it's interesting across the board, to say the least. But from a brand perspective, I think there's opportunity for brands, legacy brands like airline companies that even wanted to break in the space. I have friends that have been saving all of their airline tickets since they were a child, basically. And I know that Southwest Airlines might be approaching the space soon, and so forth. So there's a lot of cool opportunities across the board. It's just a matter of how we get there. So
yeah, you marry it to a reward system, and there you go. The door is open. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I wonder which industry is going to be the main, or maybe which project will be the main, because we haven't really identified the first major Web3 success story just yet. While there have been some really interesting ones from Nike, I mean, do you think maybe it's going to be like Starbucks or something? I feel like when I keep going back to Starbucks Odyssey and I think of the size of their loyalty program, granted, Rich, we've talked about it too, probably Web 2.5 into Web3. But that feels like if that kicks off and is a success, that might be the big one, if you will. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's going to take one major household name player to really just knock everyone off their feet. And Starbucks, so thus far, has probably had the strongest use case. Given everyone loves Nike, probably them second. But, things are slowly falling into where they should be and things are working out for every type of consumer. So I'm bullish on what that entails for the next brands that are in the works. So
yeah, I think it's always a good thing. We always root people on, especially big brands, right? Whether you like them or not, you want to root them on, because as long as it's done well and properly and with the right endorsements and the right security and regulation protocols put in place, yeah, you should be opening the door. Starbucks has one of the largest, if not the largest, loyalty program on the planet. So it is a good door opener. I think it'll be a combination of leaders in their sectors opening those doors. So, Apple, Microsoft have tremendous, Microsoft, I think, is probably poised to probably have the most impact in the metaverse. And I hate even saying that word, but, I think they're poised because they own 22 plus gaming companies. They get it. They've got it so good they've understood it for 10, 20 years, and they understand where things are moving, and gaming happens to be a tremendous on-road to new technology, new hardware and software platforms, and everything else that goes with it. They're used to micropayments and everything else. They're already doing this.
Yeah.
But I think you'll see industry leaders. One car company will probably break the mold, for NFT or smart car, really smart cars that communicate to a smart city, and other drivers. And, maybe you can collaborate playlists on the road with strangers. I mean, you could gamify the whole thing. But I think it'll be like pockets, these big boys that come out and within these sectors that'll really have cause a lot of groundswell, if you will. So
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think of you're kind of ex-Meta? What do you think of the company and the moves they're making in VR? Obviously, very ambitious. Really envisioning not just the gaming side, but envisioning sort of the utility of an office environment driven by virtual reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think the metaverse is a term that was coined, and everyone was very much excited about it about a year ago. And obviously, with the stats of like Decentraland having, I don't know, less than 1,000 consumers online to date is concerning. But I think the metaverse is here to stay. I think in the immediate term, right now, it's pretty broad, and it's pretty oversaturated with the amount of competition and people approaching the market with like okay products, but nothing like too spectacular. So I think that obviously Mark Zuckerberg's a brilliant mind. Do people want to work with him across the board because of his problematic chain of history in the past? Probably not. But does he hold the keys to billions of consumers across the world? Absolutely. So I think that if done right, it could work, but I don't know. I don't see it working in the immediate term either. So we'll see, but yeah.
How about the Instagram, allowing you to mint NFTs now?
Yeah, so I think that Instagram is a great use case for millennials specifically. I mean, I like Instagram way more than TikTok, but TikTok is a time suck in terms of just like utilize, like you just lose track of time, and I've deleted it off my phone probably 15 times now. So
it's that addictive.
That's the gamification. How many times do you delete the app? That's awesome.
Exactly. But I mean, I have to have it too because I work in social media. So it's just interesting to compare that. But also, yeah. And I mean, I think Instagram's bullish, specifically for millennials, but I do think that it's going to definitely bring on millions of consumers, especially from an e-com creator economy perspective. So
Lena, as we wrap up, so many interesting topics. Where can people learn more about Zeitgeist? Where can they learn more about you? Tell us where they can go.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Lena Grundhoefer. Otherwise, on Twitter, I am NFT Queen with the 2 3s as
cool.
the E's in Queen. Otherwise, Zeitgeist, you can find us online at zeitg3ist.com. And yeah, always looking to meet more people in the space, whether they're hungry to learn, whether they live and breathe NFTs or crypto. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for having me. So
yeah, thank you for joining us.
In New York, we'd love to have you in the studio and just hang out and talk a little bit more and see what other podcasts we can spin up together. So thank you so much.
Let's do it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
Bye-bye.
guys.